Am I the asshole for wanting my mom to be in the delivery room when my wife has our baby? My wife, Alice, 28 female, is 7 months pregnant. She's starting to think about who she'd like to have in the delivery room when the time comes. She said she would really like her dad there for support. Alice is really close with her dad since she was a kid and has only grown closer to him since her mom died, so that was no surprise. I'm completely fine with having Doug there. She said she doesn't want her stepmom there, which is fine. Her stepmom is really sweet, has been so helpful through the entirety of the pregnancy, and I know she will be hurt when she finds out she can't be there, but I can understand. The issue I have is that Alice doesn't want my mom there. My mom has never been my wife's biggest fan, but she is so excited to have a grandchild and has been planning on being in the delivery room the entire pregnancy and likely before. Like I said, my mom has been hard on Alice and can be a little judgmental, but she's still the grandmother of our child and wants to be there. She's also my mother, and I find it unfair that she can have her dad there, but I can't have my mom there. It's a high-risk pregnancy, and Alice has been really adamant about trying to give birth naturally, but she claims that if things take a turn and she wants an epidural or there needs to be an emergency C-section for whatever reason, she is worried about the judgment from my mom because my mom has openly expressed her distaste for both. Additionally, she says my mom is not the nicest to her. I know my mom has been a little harsh about her weight gain, even though about 30 pounds. She was 120 before. Allegedly, when my wife went over to my parents' house recently, she dropped a plate on the floor, and my mom yelled at her while she made her get down on the floor and clean it up.
Oh my gosh.
I understand where Alice is coming from, and while she'll be the one giving birth, he is my child as much as hers, and I feel like I should be allowed to have my mom there. My wife and I got into a scuffle about this before she started crying, and the issue was dropped. She told me that I was being selfish, but I feel like she was being selfish too. Am I the asshole for wanting my mom to be in the delivery room while my wife has our baby?
Honestly, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I the asshole for telling my sister she would have been a terrible mother? I, 17 male, have two sisters, Alice 29 and Miranda 33. I'm much closer to Alice than I am to Miranda. Miranda is also not on good terms with our parents. Alice has 4 kids and is currently expecting child number 5, while Miranda can't have children, which her ex divorced her for. Miranda is very successful in life. She has a nice apartment, works a good job, and earns a decent amount of money. Alice, on the other hand, is struggling financially. She had her first child right out of high school and got pregnant with her second soon after. So she decided to become a stay-at-home mom for her children while her boyfriend provides for them. Me and my parents try to help them out as much as possible, be it childcare or money, whatever she needs. I love my nieces and nephew. I take them to the park and play with the older ones. I really enjoy it. Miranda doesn't help out with them. She says it's because she's too busy. Well, she works long hours, but she doesn't have kids, so I don't know what she does on the weekends. She also doesn't help out financially, which I find unfair, since she makes so much money and all she does is spend it on herself, although she does give us very nice gifts for Christmas and birthdays. So here comes the part where I may have been an asshole. You were already an asshole, so let's see what this is about. We got on the topic of Christmas presents, and I told her some of the stuff I wanted. She nodded and said she would give our parents a coupon for a much-needed vacation, and Alice some clothes she had mentioned, and also some new boots and jackets for her kids. I was a little stunned she didn't have any more for Alice, so I asked, why do you only get Alice the bare minimum? You can afford to help out more and you refused to out of spite. Miranda looked at me and laughed. She said it wasn't her business to feed 6 people, and that Alice was old enough to make her choices and live with the consequences. She knew what she was getting herself into and that she wouldn't pay Alice's way through life just because she kept having children she couldn't afford. I agree. I actually called me a bitch, but I agree. I was stunned at how cold she reacted. I asked her how she could live her life being so selfish and uncaring, and she got angry and told me, listen kid, there are some things you're way too young for to be discussing with me, and this is one of those. Drop the subject or get out. I agree with her. What the fuck? You're 17. You don't even have a real job. You haven't gone to school. You don't know the hardships of life. At that point, like, you cannot tell your grown-ass sister who worked her ass off to get where she is how to spend her money. I got really frustrated with her and said something I probably shouldn't have. No wonder your husband divorced you. Even if you could have children, you would be a terrible mother. Miranda got very quiet and told me to leave and never come back. She has now blocked me on everything, and though I don't agree with her not helping out, I'm starting to feel guilty for saying what I said. So, am I the asshole? Dude, yeah.
Story time about how I got my sister's boyfriend to fall in love with me, and I do not regret it. Disclaimer is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My sister and I have always been rivals since we were kids. I'm 22 and she's 24. We were always super close in age, which means we competed for everything, including our parents' attention, clothes and makeup, and somehow we always ended up liking the same boys. When I turned 16, she was going away for college, and I actually started to appreciate her a lot more. We started calling each other every single day, and I realized that I really miss my sister. We actually got closer living further away than together. My parents were also really happy with this because her and I would not get along when she lived at home. One weekend I decided to go stay with her on her campus, and that's when things got interesting. My sister was living it up. She was partying all the time. I told her that I didn't really like that she was partying so much. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with her passing out at random guys' places. She told me that I was overreacting and not to tell my parents. But I got home and told my parents everything. This is when our relationship became bad once again. After this, my sister didn't trust me, and basically she became my enemy. She started criticizing everything about me, the clothes that I'd wear, so I had to distance myself from her. My parents wanted her to move back in with us because she wasn't doing well in school. She was clearly partying instead of studying. Of course, my sister refused to move back home, so my parents basically cut her off. I got a new boyfriend at this time, and my sister would flirt with him anytime she came home. I even caught them hugging one time. Part 2 is story time about how I stole my sister's boyfriend and don't regret it. Disclaimers in my story time and send me on Instagram. When I walked in on my boyfriend and my sister hugging, I knew I had to do something. I went straight to my parents and told them what she was doing. My dad pulled her into her room and talked to her, but she totally denied everything. She said that she was not flirting with my boyfriend, but we all knew that was a lie. Even my boyfriend was honest with me and told me that she had been flirting with him openly. That's when my boyfriend told me he didn't even want to come over to our house because my sister made him that uncomfortable. And when I told my parents this, they felt so embarrassed. They called my boyfriend and personally apologized to him. He was actually so sweet though. He would come visit me to my house and we would just chill out in his car while my sister was inside watching us through the window. Yeah, she was crazy. He and I eventually broke up because he went off to live in another country. And guess what? My sister said that she knew he never loved me and that's why he left me. She was being so mean at the time. A few years later, she started dating someone. Of course, at the time, it never occurred to me to even flirt with him or act the way that she did with my boyfriend. You see, I'm above all that. But as soon as I got a new boyfriend, she would start flirting with him. And she had no shame about it. This became a running problem in my family. My parents would ask her to leave me alone and my boyfriends, and she would say that she did. But no, she didn't. Oh yeah, and her boyfriend broke up with her because he noticed that she would flirt with a lot of guys. Apparently, she did it even in front of him. So when she finally got a new boyfriend, I decided that I was gonna do the same thing to her. I started flirting with her boyfriend a little. Not a lot, but I definitely made sure to tell him I thought he was attractive. After a few weeks, he started saying things back to me, and I knew that it was working. I never did it in front of my sisters and my parents because I didn't want them to get mad at me. So instead, I got her boyfriend to basically fall in love with me. I already knew everything about him because my sister would tell me, so I just started telling him I liked the same things he did. It got to the point where one day he kissed me and I didn't tell my parents. I made sure to get his hopes up. Part 3 is up. Once I got my sister's boyfriend to fall in love with me, her life turned to misery. No, I didn't regret it. Disclaimers is not my story time, send me on Instagram. One day I went up to my sister and told her that her boyfriend had kissed me. First she thought I was making it up to make her jealous. Told me I could never compete with her and that she was the more beautiful sister out of the two of us. Which is wrong. So I handed her my phone so that she could see all the messages that her boyfriend and I had been sending each other. And that's when she lost it. She started wailing on me. She started slapping and kicking me. My parents ran into her room and asked her what was wrong. I told my parents that I treated my sister the way she treated me. She would always go after my boyfriends, flirt with them, and try to get them to break up with me. Of course, my parents didn't agree with me, so they were really angry. They separated us, but my sister went crazy. She called her boyfriend and told him to come over. Obviously, he didn't know that she already knew at the time. And when he came over, she started beating him up. She grabbed a pan from the kitchen and started swinging at him. She actually ended up giving him a concussion. After that, she begged for his forgiveness, but he still broke up with her. At the end of the day, he ended up leaving her. She was so stupid for begging him to stay with her. Her boyfriend even asked me if we could be together, and I told him no. I told him that the whole time I had just been playing him just to get back at my sister, which I know is so cruel, but he deserved it. After that, my sister and I decided to make peace. She told me that she wouldn't mess with my boyfriends anymore and that she would stop being evil. But after a month of having my new boyfriend, I found her flirting with him too. I told her if she didn't stop that I would make her life miserable once again. I'm pretty sure she has a boyfriend, but she doesn't want to tell my family. Cause she knows that I'll go after him and I would probably end up making him fall in love with me too. But at this point, I just don't know what to do. What should I do? She's so evil and I want to make her life miserable. Bye.
Am I the asshole for refusing to remove a piece of jewelry at the request of my friend on her wedding day? My 31 female friend, 30 female, we'll call Mary, got married last week and I was in her bridal party. For context, we are friends from high school, and all of the other bridesmaids were her friends from college, who I hadn't met until her bachelorette party several months ago. I was supposed to attend the wedding with my own fiancé, but he contracted COVID 5 days before we were supposed to leave and made the choice to stay home for everyone's safety. I tested negative and we don't live together. Our 5th anniversary of our first date was 2 months ago, and he got me a beautiful opal necklace on a gold chain, specifically to wear to the wedding because it complemented my bridesmaid's dress. I asked Mary in our bridal group chat if she was all right with us wearing our own jewelry to the wedding. She said no problem. Day of the wedding comes, all of us bridesmaids and Mary meet early in the morning for pictures outside the chapel. Mary sees my necklace and loves it, and actually asked if she could switch her necklace with mine. Some other bridesmaids chime in and say that it would be her something borrowed. I tried as politely as I could to tell her that my fiancé got this for me to wear to the wedding, and especially since he can't be here, I'd like to keep it on. Mary and the other bridesmaids were persistent, saying it was her wedding and her pictures, and I wasn't being accommodating. But I firmly told them no. Mary then said if I could at least take it off, since it looked nicer than her own jewelry. Again, I told her I'd rather not. I'd like to share the wedding photos of myself in the necklace with my fiance. She was not happy. Neither of the bridesmaids were either. I received a lot of cold shoulders and dirty looks the rest of the ceremony and reception. I felt awful. After the first dance, Mary's sister came up to me to tell me just how upset Mary was and rude it was that I upset her on her big day. Am I the asshole? It's been more than a week and I'm still thinking about it nonstop. And Mary hasn't answered any of my texts.
Oh, man. That one's kind of hard. I mean, first of all, if a necklace ruins your fucking wedding, girl, you got bigger problems.
Oh my God.
A necklace, bitch?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it. Oh, it's really pretty.
It's cute, but like
Yeah.
nothing to have your day ruined over.
No, and it's also minuscule. Like, it is so small. You probably didn't even see it. Also, why would you want to get married in a necklace that another man bought your friend? That's weird.
Your friend's fiance bought her as like an important gift to mark their relationship.
Yeah, like you want to wear that in your wedding photos?
What the fuck? That's some bad juju.
Yeah, like in your wedding pictures, like that
I
you're
don't
gonna
like
have forever. You're gonna frame and have hung in your house. You
Bad.
want. That's weird.
It makes me wonder if like she secretly at one point had feelings for her friend's fiance.
It's always something deeper.
It's
Because if
yeah.
it's just that, you're Looney Tunes, bro.
Would I be the asshole if I didn't buy a new engagement ring? For 5 years now, I, male 26, have been in love with the love of my life, female 25. I cannot express how much I love her and how important she is to me. Oh my gosh. I knew I wanted to marry her shortly after getting together. We're finally financially stable enough, so I decided now is the time. In 2020, my girlfriend lost her grandmother. They were super close and it hit my girlfriend hard, especially because she couldn't have a last goodbye in the hospital due to COVID restrictions. In early 2021, my girlfriend helped her sister move houses. She was wearing a ring her grandmother gave her before she passed and lost it while carrying boxes. This had hit her even more, and even now she will still sometimes cry about this because she feels like she lost the last memory of her grandmother. We had looked for the ring but hadn't found it. On Christmas, my girlfriend had cried again because she missed her grandmother and laminated the loss of the ring. This gave me an idea. She spent the weekend of New Year's Eve with a friend, so I contacted her sister and asked if I could search her house once again for the ring. When I mentioned that I want to use the ring to propose, she was super excited. She, her husband, and my girlfriend's mother, who loved the idea as well, helped me and eventually found the ring between some boxes in her garage. Oh my god, yay! I love this idea. That's actually super fucking sentimental and sweet. What the heck? I'm planning on proposing on the 14th, which is the anniversary of our first date, and we always go out to do something nice then. I had mentioned it to my friends who were excited for me, but they had asked about what ring I got, and I told them the story. They called me a cheapskate for not buying my girlfriend a new ring. They also said that it's not an engagement ring. I mean, it really doesn't look like an engagement ring because it isn't. It's a normal silver ring with an amethyst stone. My girlfriend struggled with anxiety, and her grandmother got her one because apparently those stones help with anxiety. They also said it's an asshole move to use the ring someone else paid for as an engagement ring. One friend also brought up that by connecting the ring to our engagement, I might taint its original meaning. Oh, I didn't think like that. Maybe they have a point. Now I don't feel so confident about this anymore. I thought that since the ring has a lot of meaning to her, it might be a good engagement ring. My girlfriend even jokingly said she would be okay with the candy ring because it's the symbolism that counts and not the ring itself. Now I think girls just say that just to be nice and not sound like bitchy, but you better not get no girl no candy ring, okay? But now I'm scared I really might come up as a cheapskate and she might not want the ring as an engagement ring, but just normal jewelry. So would I be the asshole here? Okay, no, here's the thing. I think it's a very, very sweet idea to propose with the ring. You should also, I think, have a backup ring, or when you propose to her, tell her like, I know I found this for you, but I want to go take you. If you don't want this, I want to go get you an engagement ring and help you pick it out. I think that's a good balance of it.
My boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. Should I leave him? Disclaimer's not my story time. Send me an Instagram. I know you guys are gonna all say yes immediately, but hear me out. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. My best friend and I actually met him at a bar. That night, I never expected that he would ever come after me. I consider my best friend the prettier of the two of us, so I'm used to her getting hit on instead of me. But that night, my boyfriend came to me. He talked to me pretty much the entire night, and my best friend told me to go for it. So I did. He and I spent the night together, and after that, we were inseparable. To the point where he wanted me to move in with him after 2 months. My parents thought I was absolutely crazy and they didn't want me to move in with him, but I did anyway. I come from a Latino family, so this was absolutely reprehensible. I went against my family's wishes and they actually stopped speaking to me for a little bit, but luckily I got them back. My boyfriend during that time gave me all his support. He told me that my family would come around eventually and that they would see that we were in love. So living together was a logical next step. After 3 months of living together, I knew that I wanted to marry him, and he would talk about marriage all the time. He asked me what kind of ring I would want and what I would want for the proposal. We even started talking about our honeymoon. I was also starting to get in the best shape of my life. I was looking super snatched. My boyfriend told me that he loved the way that I look, but that he didn't want me to get skinny. Again, I just felt like he was supporting me and loving me. Around this time, my best friend started dating somebody. After a few weeks, they got really serious about the relationship. And of course, we went on double dates. After the third double date, I noticed that my boyfriend was getting a little annoyed. I got the feeling he was jealous of my best friend's boyfriend. Follow for part 2. My boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. Should I leave him? Disclaimer's not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I asked him if he was jealous of my best friend's boyfriend, and that's when he said no. But every time we would go on double dates, he would get in such a bad mood. 3 weeks ago, my best friend told me that she was moving in with her boyfriend. And when I told my boyfriend that they were moving in, his face almost went green. I asked him what was wrong, and he said nothing. After that, he went into the bathroom and didn't come out for 40 minutes. Again, I asked him if he was okay, and he said yeah. And I sat him down and asked him to be honest with me. That's when he said, I'm attracted to your best friend. Instantly started to cry because I had already been suspecting it. He explained to me that he didn't have any feelings for her until she got a boyfriend, and that he felt that he had some sort of ownership over her. Before my best friend got a boyfriend, the three of us would hang out a lot. And not once then did I ever get a feeling that he was attracted to her. He told me that he would never act on his feelings, but he didn't want to go on any more double dates. I asked him if he wanted to be with her instead of me, and he said absolutely not. He said that I was the love of his life, and that attraction only meant attraction, that he didn't have feelings for her. A few days later, he took me to the most expensive restaurant in our city and asked me to marry him. But I didn't know what to say. I can't stop thinking that he's attracted to my best friend. Part 3 is my boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to my best friend. What should I do? Disclaimer is not my story time. Sending me on Instagram. After he proposed, I told him I didn't know what to say. He told me to think it over. I finally decided to tell my best friend what my boyfriend had told me. That he had confessed that he was attracted to her. First she laughed. I told her no. I'm serious. He confessed that he's attracted to you. That's when she told me I needed to break up with him. That's when I told her that he had also proposed. And she said, well then you really need to break up with him now. That's when she told me that she didn't want me to resent her and that it was completely out of her control. And I didn't. I promised her that I would never resent her for my boyfriend being attracted to her. It's not like she ever did anything on purpose to make him feel attracted. She also told me that marrying him right now would be rushing into it. And she's kind of right. We've only really known each other for 6 months. Then she told me that she's never gotten the feeling that he's attracted to her. She's never caught him looking at her or anything like that. So now her theory is that he's looking for an easy way out and that he probably wants me to break up with him. But my boyfriend is still sweet and super affectionate. He's constantly showering me with love. My best friend thinks that if I stay with him, our relationship will suffer. I've known my best friend longer. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for giving my ex-wife a large amount of money I won despite the anger of my girlfriend? I recently won a fuck you amount of money. I won't say exactly how much, but it's in the millions. It's enough to change the life of myself and my family. My ex-wife is the mother of my 2 kids. She is an amazing woman and good to the bone. We divorced 6 years ago because I had an affair with my current partner. I was in a low place in my life and I fucked up. She was in incredible pain, but like a fucking saint, she allowed me to still see our kids who mean the world to me. Allowed our divorce to be as pain-free as possible. She was actually the first person I phoned after my mom and pops, after I found out I won the lottery. She was pleased for me. Joked that I could take the kids on a world-round trip, and that was that. Nothing else. As soon as I won, I knew I wanted to give her a significant amount, and I feel like this is some small, tiny way I can show her that I'm not a complete fuck-up. She deserves to know that I care despite my mistakes. She also works a shitty job in the public library, which pays her peanuts. She would actually be able to pursue her hobbies this way, give our kids a better life between us. I haven't discussed this with my ex yet, but long story short, when I told my girlfriend, she was livid, screaming that I'm disrespecting her, accusing me of still being in love with my ex. My girlfriend is threatening to break up with me, and to be honest, I'm feeling incredibly relieved over the threats. I don't plan on changing my plans, but am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed until my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of our house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters Olivia and Sloane, 18, with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe, 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Olivia and Sloane have no respect for Zoe's privacy, none. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone, accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls and this is typical teenager girl behavior. I completely disagree. The last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set that she saved up for over a month, and one of the girls, Sloane, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found the kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife and she said she asked Sloane to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found out she was moving valuable belongings out of the house because of this incident. The girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it and I straight up told him. He said, my girls aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff. He said that Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality, trying to appear older than she is. Oh, this is where the claws come out. He accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told them that this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters, then demanded I remove it. But I said this lock does not get removed until her brother and his daughters are out of the house. She got mad I was implying we kicked them out and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family refused to do. So she should start with shaming or blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces and granddaughters in. If it wasn't for her family's unwillingness to help, we wouldn't be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment, and my wife is very much upset over this. Go dad, good for you.
Storytime about how I tried to get my boyfriend back for cheating on me, but I ended up with an STD instead. So a little background information. I was dating this guy for about 7 months whenever I was in high school. And I would always hang out with him, his guy friends, and their girlfriends. Well, the one night we were hanging out at my house and he kept checking my phone. And he said it was because he was waiting for his mom to text my phone. So then he had to go to the bathroom and he asked to take my phone with him. And I said no because that's weird as fuck. So while he's in the bathroom, I get a text from a random number. And it's a bunch of videos that my boyfriend took of him doing the nasty with other girls. And there were like 15 videos, all different girls. So by this time he's been in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. So I go to confront him while he's in the bathroom, like I do not care at this point. And he's gone. My bathroom window is wide open. My curtains are broken. So then I start to text all of his best friends. Like for part 2. Part 2. So it turns out the person who sent it to me was one of the girls in my friend group. So at that point, every single person in that friend group was dead to me and I needed to get every single one of them back. So like I said, I started texting all my ex's best friends and I asked every single one of them if they wanted to hook up. 4 of them said yes, the other 3 just blocked me. And the 4 who said yes all had girlfriends in our friend group. Well, the girls in my friend group had no idea, so they invited me to their party. And at that party, it was my mission to do the dirty with every single one of those guys. Well, there was this bathroom in the basement, which nobody knew about except the girl whose house it was. So one after the other, I did the dirty with every single one of them in that bathroom. And I made sure to snap a picture or take a video, so that way I could send it to my boyfriend. I know, I'm crazy, get over it. Well, in the morning, my ex's closest best friend came over. Well, I did the dirty with him too, because my ex hated him being around me, because he was known for screwing other people's girlfriends. Okay, there's gonna be a part 3. Part 3. So a week later, I started having some problems down there. So I had my mom take me to the doctors. Turns out I have a fucking STD. And nobody knew about it, at least not yet. Well, my boyfriend came over that same day asking if we could get back together. So I thought, what an even better way to get back at him. Give him what I have. Mind you, I was still hooking up with all 4 of his best friends. And then like 2 weeks later, my boyfriend started talking to me about how he was also having problems down there. And I was like, oh, maybe you should go to the doctors. So after he went to the doctors, he texts me and he goes, yeah, I have an STD. So then I sent him all the videos of his best friends and I said, yeah, I hope you enjoy living with that for the rest of your life. And I also gave it to all of his friends and then they spread it to their girlfriends. Payback's a bitch.
Story time about when my mom caught me doing it with my best friend.
I was 16 at the time, and there was this new boy that moved in across the street from us. He was super cute, and I noticed him right away. My parents were super strict. I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend or even any guy friends, and I knew right away that I wanted to at least become this guy's friend because he was so cute. So one day I told my mom, hey, why don't we take cookies or something to welcome the new neighbors in town? And my mom was like, that's a great idea. So we end up going over and we meet them. They're really nice. And the cute boy comes downstairs and he tells his mom he's going to go to Bible study. Well, when we get home, I tell my mom, hey, you know what? Maybe I should join a Bible study group too. And my mom was like, great idea. She even told me to go ask him about it since he had mentioned it. One day he's mowing the lawn, so I decided to go talk to him and ask him about the Bible study group. He actually ended up taking me there that same day and we had a fun class. Over the next few weeks, we became really, really good friends. Best friends. We told each other everything, but there was always attraction. Part 2. So my neighbor, I'll call him Curtis, we're really good friends at this point, but we were always attracted to each other, but because we were in Bible study together and our parents were very religious, we kind of tried to stay away from anything. One day, we're in my house chilling in my room because I knew my mom wouldn't be home for a while, so I told him to just come upstairs. We ended up eating Pop-Tarts and watching a Netflix show. The whole time I was mustering the courage to tell him that I really liked him because I really felt that I wanted to be honest with him instead of just lying to him, and the whole reason why I even got into the Bible study group was to be with him, or at least spend time with him. So finally, I just blurted it out. I said, I like you. And I like you like a lot. He just stares at me blankly. He doesn't know what to say, and I could tell that he was kind of nervous. So I said, "Do you like me too?" He said, "Yes, you know that I do." And then we started making out. This was the first time I'd ever been kissed, and it was the first time I'd ever had a boy in my room by myself. I kept thinking my mom could come home at any moment, so I told him that he should go home. Suddenly, we're on my bed, and we're doing things that I'd never done before. Suddenly, my door swings open, and guess who it is? Part 3. So my mom swings the door open, and she sees us on my bed doing stuff. Of course, I'm mortified. I'm super embarrassed. I'm also embarrassed because I know how she's going to react in front of him. My mom, of course, just starts yelling her head off. Then we walk over to his house. She proceeds to tell his mom what we did. And then 5 minutes later, my dad walks into their house. I was really afraid of my dad. So now we're in their kitchen, and his parents and my parents are just staring us down and telling us that what we did was completely wrong. Then my dad starts saying that we need to get married. I can tell Curtis is freaking out. Of course, I'm freaking out too. His parents actually agree that we should get married. Thankfully, my mom was completely against it, and she said absolutely not. They're too young. I literally felt like I was dying. I was obviously grounded for months. Couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. And I obviously didn't speak to Curtis again. Then my mom tells me that Curtis and his family actually moved away. My heart was completely broken. A few years later in college, I contacted him through Facebook. We met up, and we've been together ever since. I knew that our connection back then was super strong, and it is now.
Story time about how I woke up to my best friend having a seizure. A little background information. So my close friend invited me over to his house to spend the night. And we're gonna call him Jay. Well, Jay and I got to his house, and his parents are really strict, so he had to sneak me in. So he told me to wait by the garage, and as soon as he opens the front door to his house, I hear his parents screaming. So he's inside fighting with his parents, I'm outside freezing my ass off. So an hour later, he comes out to get me, walks me through the garage, and I have to hide in this crawl space. So while I'm hiding in this crawl space, him and his parents are still arguing. And his parents walk past where I was like 5 times. So his mom gets in the car and leaves. She said she was going to kill herself. His dad comes into the garage, starts crying. I literally witnessed him have a mental fucking breakdown. Then his mom came back, said that she hated everybody. So then Jay purposely bangs his head off of the kitchen table 2 times. So when he came into the garage to get me, he had an ice pack on his head. Then we snuck up to his room like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, he rushes me up to his room because his dad was in the basement and his mom left again, threatening to kill herself again. And while we're upstairs, he starts taking dabs. And we're up for a little bit and then we go to sleep. So at like 8 in the morning, we both wake up. He's on his phone, I'm on my phone, we're not facing each other. And then all of a sudden, I feel the bed start to shake, like a lot. So I turn over and this kid is having a full-blown fucking seizure. Like he's foaming at the mouth, his eyes are literally rolling in the back of his fucking head. So I get up and roll him over onto his side because I didn't want him to start choking. And I'm fucking freaking out and don't know what to do because I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. And he's like making all these types of noises, so I go and I run down the hallway, I try to find his parents' room, and I open the door and have to wake them up dead out of their sleep. And I was like, your son's having a seizure. So his mom runs over to the room, and his dad's like, well, who the fuck are you? And why the fuck are you in my house? And I was like, your son told me that I could stay the night last night. Oh, like for part 3. Part 3. So like I said, his dad's like interrogating me right now. So they call an ambulance, his son leaves in the ambulance, they didn't go with him, and his dad's like, you're never allowed in this fucking house again. And then he asked me, did he take anything last night? And I'm like, he did dabs, but like, I didn't do anything because I don't do that stuff. So he goes over to where all of his dab stuff is and starts throwing the glass pieces in the garbage, making sure that he fucking breaks them all. And his mom comes over to me to comfort me because I'm literally like fucking crying because this kid almost died right next to me. And she's like, it's okay, sweetie, like this happens to him a lot. But I felt so uncomfortable because he was like making it seem like it was my fault. So I hurry up and call my mom, and my mom doesn't get there till like 30 minutes because their house is a little bit further away. And for all of you wondering what happened to him, I don't know because this happened this morning.
Here's a story time about when I broke off my 1.5-year engagement with my ex-fiance. We met on a movie set, he was playing my boyfriend, and within a week, we were already calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. 2 months into the relationship, he convinced me to move to LA with him because we both wanted to pursue acting seriously, and he was an established model already. He had worked in Tokyo and Paris as a model. Of course, I was so in love, I said yes, and I left my family, which was really heartbreaking for them. I will totally always regret that decision because I left way too soon. I was so young. We struggled for money in LA, but I decided to get a serving job, so I was making more money than he was because he was working at a movie theater making $8 an hour. Because of this, I had to pay for a lot of the bills, and I even started helping him pay off his school loans. We also shared a banking account, which was terrible because I was putting in way more money than he was. I hated the apartment we lived in because I would wake up with roaches in my hair, so I decided to get a second serving job. When I asked him to get a second job as well, he said no because he was very happy at his job. Part 2 is Part 2. So I asked my fiance if he could get a second job to help me out with the bills, and he said no. I would tell my mom and sisters about the situation, and they would tell me that he should definitely be helping me out more, and I just would make up excuses for him, and I just thought it's okay, he can work at the movie theater, and I will work my 2 jobs. At this point, I was paying for most of the rent, most of the bills, and his student school loans. Owed $20,000, you guys, and I was paying for all of that. I even got a 3rd job because I wanted to save up to move out of that crappy apartment. Finally, I got hired at the strip club as a cocktail waitress, and I was able to quit all of my other jobs. My ex-fiance was definitely happy with the amount of money I was making at the strip club. Of course, he felt absolutely no pressure to get a new job and help me out. I finally put my foot down and told him we were moving to a better apartment because I was not happy in the apartment we were in. I told him he had no right to say no because I was the one paying for everything. We found the perfect apartment and I loved it. It was absolutely beautiful and I felt so at home there. Then one night, I was sexually assaulted at the strip club. Of course, I was really affected by it. At first, he was supportive, but after a few days, he basically told me to get over it. Part 3. When he told me to just get over the sexual assault that I experienced at the strip club, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that the man I was about to marry would be so insensitive. And then I just started realizing, wait, I am paying for everything. I pay for your bills, I pay for your rent, I pay for your student loans, and you're here telling me to just get over this sexual assault. It was like someone had put a mirror to my face and was showing me the truth. The final straw was when I told him I wanted to quit the strip club because I didn't want to be in that environment and I didn't want to see the man that had sexually assaulted me again. He said, absolutely not, you can't quit, the money is too good. And that's when I broke up with him. I told him that I couldn't be with someone who didn't care enough about me and only really cared about the money and to be kept. He was so comfortable with me paying for everything and him just chilling at a job where he got paid $8 an hour while I was busting my butt every single night. He told me I would never find anyone better than him. The breakup was amicable, thank God. He didn't stress me out or anything. He kind of said, you know, you'll be back. Of course, I never went back. Know your worth and be with someone who actually cares about you.
Am I the asshole for marrying my sister's baby daddy? I, 36-year-old female, and my sister, 29 female, got pregnant when she was 18 years old. I am infertile and knew I couldn't have kids, so when my sister said she was giving her baby up for adoption, I decided to be her mom. My sister went no contact 5 months after giving birth. For a bit of background, my sister got pregnant by a one-night stand and she apparently didn't remember or know the father at the time of birth, but when my daughter V was born, a man T, 35, messaged me on social media claiming to be the father of my child. My sister had run into him at a club and drunkenly confessed to the pregnancy. We met up, he bonded with his daughter, and well, that man is now my husband of 7 years. Coming back to my sister, she called me yesterday. Although I was surprised at her call, I picked up. We made some small talk and then she said she had just gotten married a year back and both of them wanted children but couldn't because her husband was infertile but really wanted kids. I asked her if she wanted to adopt and she said no, she just wanted her baby back. I was speechless for a few moments before replying that if she wants to meet my child as an aunt, she is welcome to, and we can both sit V down and explain the reason for her absence, but she can't just ask me to give up my child. My sister said she'll sue me as she is the birth mother. I told her she was out of her mind, and then I told her how I married the baby daddy, T. She exploded, calling me names and saying I stole her life. My husband came home from work, and when I explained to him, he was beyond furious. I then got a call from my parents saying I was an asshole for telling my sister she's not allowed to see her baby. I never said that, and I welcomed her to bond with V, but they refused to listen and said I was being insensitive and harsh and flaunting my family. I now feel bad because my sister and I were very close growing up, and I feel quite close to her situation since I know the struggles of infertility. My husband said there was no way he was letting my sister have full time alone with V, and I agree, but I want to know if I'm the asshole for being too harsh and telling her about T.
Story time about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with my stepsister. So a little background information, my mom remarried whenever I was in 8th grade, and my stepdad had 2 daughters. One which was my age and we got along really well. Well, before my sisters and I went back to school, my mom wanted to go on a camping trip with everyone. And my boyfriend was coming because he was really close with my family. So while my stepsister and I are packing up, she starts acting really weird. And we're gonna call my boyfriend Kevin. She was like, oh, is Kevin still coming with us? And I was like, yeah. And then she goes, oh, are you and Kevin still together? And I'm like, we were never broken up. Like, the fuck? Like I said, she was just being super fucking weird. But anyways, we all get in the car, we drive up there, and her and Kevin start being super weird around each other. Like, they were being too touchy. Anytime that I wanted to go do something with Kevin, she would say, oh, Kevin, you can come do this instead. Well, that night, Kevin and I are sleeping in our tent. At least I thought he was. And I wake up to some loud noises in the other tent, like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, I heard a bunch of noises and talking in my stepsister's tent, and I wake up and my boyfriend isn't in the tent. So I'd be very quiet getting out of my tent, and I go over to hers and I just listen. And oh bitch, I should have just confronted them because I got my motherfucking feelings hurt. He was telling her how he didn't love me at all and how he only wanted to be with her, and how every time that they kissed each other and screwed each other, he felt such a connection between them. So not only was he cheating physically, but they had a connection. Wonderful. So I open her tent and I confront them. This was the most degrading thing I've ever went through in my life. And I said, I heard you guys outside. And I'm just not the type of girl who's going to come at another girl because my man wants her. Because at that point, he's not my man. She goes, sit down, sweetie, we need to talk. Apparently they're in love. So they started dating. They're still dating. And my parents allowed it. So I distanced myself from all of them.
Am I the asshole for making my brother leave after he brought his kids to my child-free wedding? My wife and I got married days ago. We decided the wedding will be child-free. We thought this was the best option considering several factors from budget to keeping the order, etc. Everyone got an invitation, but my biggest concern was how my brother Ramsey, 36, was going to react. Ramsey married young and has 4 kids that he takes everywhere he and his wife goes. They're always there at every family event. The kids are grade A hyperactive to say the least. I gave Ramsey the invitation in person and he read it out loud in a sarcastic tone and then said, child free, huh? I nodded and he got somewhat mad saying, are you serious? But my children have never been excluded from any big or small event, let alone their own uncle's wedding. I said sorry, but it's already been decided and everyone had to follow the rules, not just him. He started off for a minute and then to my surprise he said, I totally get it, man. No children means no children. No worries. I was glad he didn't start an argument over it and seemed to accept the rule. The day of the wedding came and Ramsey and his wife didn't show up until shortly before the ceremony began. My best man noticed that Ramsey had arrived and had all his kids with him. I was legit mad and I went to meet him at the entrance and saw he brought all his kids against me and my wife's wishes. I greeted the kids and asked my sister-in-law to take them back to the car. He loudly asked what the F was wrong with me. I asked why he brought his kids and who said it was okay. He said no one, but he was planning on bringing the kids all along and figured that by initially agreeing to my rule, then showing up with the kids anyway would get me to agree on letting them stay. I stated this was no event for kids for many reasons and that everyone respected the rule except him. He complained about me disrespecting him and his kids since, again, he never attends any event without them. In his words, wherever I go, my kids follow, period. I told him he needed to leave then. Not only did he call me a lunatic, but a terrible brother and terrible uncle. He also called me a simp for agreeing to his wife's stupid rule, saying that if it was him and his wife even hinted he couldn't have his family's kids at their wedding, he would have dropped her right there and then. It was humiliating and loud enough for the guests to notice. My in-laws did too. I told him to leave and that's when my mom and aunt tried to convince me to let it go and let them stay, but I refused and had him leave after a massive argument between us. To say that I felt absolutely shitty is an understatement. Everyone gave me grief ever since that incident and are siding with Ramsey, saying I wronged him and acted cold towards him and his kids when they showed up to celebrate me and my wife. My dad is especially pissed at me for potentially permanently effing up my relationship with Ramsey, his wife and kids by kicking them out of my wedding. He quoted Ramsey won't ever forget this day. So am I the asshole?
Story time about when my crazy celeb ex made me take a drug test because he thought I was cheating on him and stealing his drugs. Most of you already know who I'm talking about, but if you don't, he's on TV right now. Leave your guesses in the comments. At this point, we had been together about 6 months, but every time we would break up, one of us would go back. It was a very toxic cycle, but I was definitely ready to leave him at this point. I was just scared and I didn't know how to do it. He had this thing about his closet where he never left the door open and I could never go in. And he would specifically tell me not to go into his closet. He even carried his closet keys or hid them when I was around. Well, this one time I'm just chilling at his house and he comes up to me and he says, why did you open my safe? And I said, I can't even get into your closet where the safe is because I don't have keys. How would I be able to get into your safe without the combination? Then he takes me into the closet, opens the safe, and shows me what's in there. And it's a bunch of illegal stuff that I really didn't know was there. Of course, I started to get really nervous and scared. And he accused me of stealing money and drugs and giving it to my pimp because he had a theory that I was an escort or a prostitute. And he said he couldn't trust me any longer and took me to CVS to get a drug test. Come back for part 2. Part 2. So he takes me to CVS, and on the way there, he's yelling and telling me that if I don't pass this test, we're totally through. I told him that I would pass the test for sure, but that we were through anyway. He said he was convinced that I was a drug addict and that he needed to get away from me. Mind you, he's the one with the closet full of drugs. We get to CVS, I'm bawling my eyes out and my hands and knees are trembling. As we're entering the CVS, this man comes up to us, out of nowhere, like an angel. And he says to me, are you okay? Do you need some water? And then he looks at my ex and he's like, hey, maybe you guys need to, sit down and talk things through. Of course, my ex answered for me and he said, no, she's fine, don't worry. I must have looked like I needed help. The man kept close and stood at the register the whole time, kind of watching us. We got the drug test and then he rushed me back to the car. We drive back in silence to his house. And the whole time I'm just thinking, I don't need this, just leave him. I pee on the stick and then I give it back to him. He starts crying and saying that it's over because he knows it's going to come back positive. I got my things in line. 2 days later, he comes to my apartment and he's really angry. Come back for part 3. Part 3, knocks on my door, I open, and the look on his face is just of pure anger. He throws the drug test results on the couch and says, how did you pass? And I said, I don't do drugs. He watched me pee, you guys. He watched me pee on that stick. He said I must have taken something and there was no way I could pass the test. Then I just started yelling at him and I told him to get out. You guys, he was shocked. I had never kicked him out of my apartment before. He was shocked. Then he started crying and he said, I can't believe you're kicking me out of your apartment. And I told him, you made me go to CVS, take a drug test, I passed the test and you're still mad? You're never going to trust me and this isn't going to work. He said, of course we can work on it. You just have to stop lying to me. After I kicked him out, I felt relief. I thought it could really be over. A few days later, he calls me apologizing and crying, begging me to go back. When you're in love and you start seeing red flags, you just will do anything to ignore them. I did. Don't do the same thing.
Story time about how I broke up my best friend and his girlfriend. So it was our sophomore year in high school, and my best friend and I had known each other since we were like 8 years old. And I've always had a crush on him. Like, anytime he would get a girlfriend, I would try and break them up. And it would work. Well, our freshman year of high school, he started dating this one girl. Well, when he started dating her, he distanced himself from me because she didn't like how much time we were spending together. So a few months go by and my birthday's coming up. And mind you, within these past few months, we only seen each other like twice. And he had me blocked on all social media. Well, our parents were really good friends because we lived in the same cul-de-sac. So my mom invited him and his parents to my birthday party. So at the end of my party, my friends left and him and his parents stayed. And my parents really didn't care if I drank alcohol, so we had like a whole bottle of vodka to ourselves. So we're in the basement and we're taking shots together. Well, I got him super drunk and he fell asleep. And while he was sleeping, I went on his phone and like for part two. And I was able to get into his phone because he stole my fingerprint from when we were best friends. So I unblocked myself on all social medias. And there was an ottoman pushed against the couch. So while he was sleeping, I was able to go lay next to him. So while I was laying next to him, I took a few pictures of us. And I saved them in his camera roll. And I also sent one to his girlfriend. And it was about 1 a.m. Well, she opened it right away, and then she started going off and would not stop calling his phone. So after that, I turned his phone off. So he started to wake up, and then we started drinking more. And then we started fooling around. And while we were doing the nasty, I took a video, but he didn't see it because the phone was in front of me. And I had his girlfriend on Snapchat. So what did I do? I sent the motherfucking video to her. So the next day, obviously, he found out what happened. So then he came over to my house to talk to me. And I told him how I was upset that she was keeping him from me. So he broke up with her and started dating me.
Saw you coming until you turned me around. I used to think I was nothing, but look at this love we found. So give me your hand like you should cry. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh yeah, no more tears. Oh yeah, no more tears. Take that chance, we'll be fine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh yeah, no.
Am I the asshole for making my boyfriend rehome his German Shepherd? Me and my boyfriend have been together since we were in university. We're both 23 and recently moved in together. We both went to our local university, so we both lived at home so we'd be able to save money. Around a year after we started dating, my boyfriend got a German Shepherd puppy. I've never been a fan of German Shepherds, but I'm a dog lover, so I wasn't going to tell him not to get one when we weren't even living together yet. When we moved in, my dislike of German Shepherd was confirmed. The dog leaves hair all over the place, barks whenever someone walks by our house, needs extreme amounts of exercise. I could go on for hours. However, I was willing to put up with it since my boyfriend had otherwise trained him well. I now realize how stupid that was, since the dog breed seems to have problems regardless of how well it's trained. I recently got a Rottweiler puppy, and to say that I formed a bond with him would be an understatement. The German Shepherd, on the other hand, didn't take too kindly to the puppy and would have made its disdain for the dog known. Me and my boyfriend took the dog to the vet to see where the issue could come from, and she told us that some German Shepherds just don't get along with other dogs. My boyfriend suggested that we may have to rehome my puppy due to his puppy's disdain of him, and he could still find a good home since he was only 5 months. The thought of rehoming something I loved for a dog I couldn't stand mortified me, and to think that the only reason for rehoming him would be because of another dog's nasty behavior didn't make the situation any better. I told my boyfriend that there was no way I was rehoming my puppy and that I'd be willing to move out if need be. After days of arguing, my boyfriend took the dog to the local shelter. The house has been much quieter since, and I can honestly say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. My sister, on the other hand, didn't hold a sentiment and actually referred to me as an evil bitch for putting my boyfriend in this position. So it got me thinking, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out of my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant? I come from a conservative Christian family. All my family members were/are involved in the church and have church-based jobs. When they met my wife, they loved her and embraced her as their own. We dated for 2 years and discovered she was pregnant after we got engaged. Invitations were already given at the time, and we decided to still have the wedding on the date when my wife was 5 months in. My family was furious when they found out my wife was pregnant. They asked if we were even still considering having a wedding. I said why not, but they were very upset, especially my mom and dad, who said that they've always been known for their decency and good Christian values, and they weren't willing to let this stain their reputation, as in my wife and I getting married while pregnant. They officially dropped out and refused to negotiate, saying it was done and I have only myself to blame for this outcome and should have moved the wedding to out of town. I was hurt and I tried to change their minds and checked with other members, but my brother said he had no intentions to look like a joke in front of his fellow church members and dropped out too. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she may not be able to make it. She's 100% healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and stopped his wife and kids from attending, and my uncle cussed me out, tore up the invitation, and kicked me out. I felt terrible with no family members of my own to support me and share my joy at my wedding. I even broke down crying after the ceremony. I haven't spoken to them for months and then got busy with my 4-week-old daughter. My cousin reached out to hand me gifts and well wishes for the birth of my daughter sent from my family. I returned everything. He sat with me on behalf of my family and said I shouldn't have returned the gifts and that they were from my family who want to see and hopefully be involved in my daughter's life. He said my mom's longing to meet her grandbaby and everyone else is wanting to visit soon to celebrate my daughter's life. I said, wasn't my daughter the reason why the entire lot of them abandoned my wedding? My daughter at some point will ask about the wedding and I have no intentions on lying to her. He just started stuttering as I went on about how they treated my daughter as someone to be ashamed of and hide. He replied saying he guaranteed I got it all wrong and no matter what goes down between us, I can never deny that my daughter is their granddaughter/niece, etc., and that they're family. He asked that I arrange for them to visit, but I refused. My wife says I should let them come, but I still refuse. So, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for not having my stepdaughter in the family photo? I, 32 female, and my husband Jack, 36 male, have 3 kids together. Lydia, 5, Carol, 2, Solomon, 8. Jack has an Ephraim, 8 female from a different marriage. It's our last week of summer before the kids start school, so we decided to rent a lovely little beach cottage for the week. It's a common theme in my family to take Christmas card photos while on vacation, so naturally I wanted to take the photos while we were away. Here's a problem. Jack is white, but Ephraim's mom is black and she turned out looking very much like her. I don't care what race she is, but my parents, however, are pretty racist. I have limited contact with them for several reasons, so they've never met Ephraim, but we're on Christmas card terms. I don't want to send them a card that Ephraim is on because they will make a fuss about the certain word with the hard R, child. So my plan was to take pictures with just me, husband, and bio kids for my parents and a couple other relatives, and then have her be in the picture for Jack's family and our friends. But when I called picture time and told Ephraim she wasn't going to be in this picture but the next one, she started to look upset. I did let her take our pictures, which lifted her spirits, and we got some lovely pictures with her too. We also got some ice cream and she hasn't been upset beyond that initial moment. The trouble came later when Jack asked why I didn't want Ephraim in the photo. He said he thought it was maybe so I could get one with all of my kids. I didn't want to lie to him, so I told him why, because I don't want Ephraim to be exposed to people who could potentially and emotionally hurt her. Just like that, he went from being understanding to pissed. And I guess he said, she didn't want you in her picture because you're black, or something like that to his daughter, and now she's upset with me too. I really wasn't trying to hurt her in any way. I did this out of care and love, but I think I might have done it in a wrong way. So, am I the asshole? Am I wrong for telling my sister her rainbow baby isn't special? I, 27 female, have a set of twins, Ben and Betty. They just turned 6. My sister, 32 female, has Connor, who is 4. My sister and her husband lost their first baby due to SIDS. It was devastating for the whole family and I was behind my sister 100% of the way. I couldn't imagine what it was like. Anyway, when she found out she was pregnant with Connor, we were all excited. The pregnancy went well and Connor got a good bill of health. I love my sister and I love my nephew, but my sister is convinced that because he's her rainbow baby, that means he can do whatever he wants. Connor is incredibly spoiled and a brat. He throws fits to get his way, hits, kicks, cries, whatever it takes. My sister and her husband give him no discipline. He's their rainbow baby, so that is their excuse for his bad behavior. Their lives are to serve for whatever Connor wants. My twins just turned 6 and we had a small party for them. Everyone was having a good time except for Connor. He wanted cake, didn't like the games, wanted to watch TV, wanted ice cream now, didn't want other kids to touch him, and etc. Basically, the whole party, Connor threw a tantrum. The final straw came at present time. My husband went to get the gifts out of the living room only to find Connor had ripped nearly all of them open. My sister made excuses saying he was just excited and wanted to play with my kids' new toys. I lost it. I told her that Connor isn't special, that he's a brat and he's been ruining the party since he got here. My sister immediately went on that he's her rainbow baby and he didn't mean it and maybe I should have put the presents where he couldn't get to them. They were in the living room and the party was outside. No one was inside. I lost my temper, I know I did. This was my kid's party though. I said some nasty things to her. I told her that Connor isn't a baby anymore and he's not special and she's raising a self-centered brat who will grow up to be a self-centered adult. She left the party and then my parents called. They said they understood my frustrations and everything about the situation. Then they said they still feel like I should apologize to my sister. Why? Because I have 2 healthy kids while she lost 1 and she's still having to deal with it? I told them no. My sister should apologize for how her son acted at the party. My husband and the guests who were at the party are on my side. My sister hasn't really spoken to me in a few days, just posted passive-aggressive things on social media, which I just blocked. Am I wrong for kicking my brother out for announcing his wife's pregnancy right after I announced my daughter had cancer? Just to make sure I represent both sides of the conflict, my brother and his wife suffered from not having kids for years. It impacted them greatly. They love the kids in the family but always wish to have kids of their own. Lately, we got busy with my daughter Megan, who is 12, with health problems. She started suffering from anemia, loss of appetite, and recurrent fevers. We've taken her to the pediatrician, and from there we've learned that she has cancer. It was so devastating, I didn't want to tell my family right away. Most of them have chronic conditions, and this type of news might trigger a negative reaction because they love Megan and would give everything to see her healthy. My husband and I decided to gather the family at my house this past Wednesday to announce Megan's diagnosis. My aunt didn't take it well because she holds Megan dear, so she was rightfully the most devastated one. After a few minutes of complete silence, my brother started moving in his seat, saying there's something very serious he wanted to tell everyone. He was hesitant, but then he and his wife stood up, and then he said that they found out that they were finally expecting. The family were conflicted. Some got up to congratulate them, and some remained seated. I remained seated, and my brother then approached me and expressed how sorry he was that they had to tell us in these circumstances, but said he couldn't wait since this is a huge deal for them after years of waiting and because everyone was present. Literally everyone was there since I said the announcement we wanted to make concerned Megan. I argued with him about how he thought this was an appropriate time and asked if Megan mattered to him at all since he didn't take a minute to realize she was just diagnosed with cancer. He started reminding me how many years he and his wife suffered from frustration and disappointment for not being able to have kids, and argued that because he wasn't able to be a father until now, he's 37, he felt he was missing out on so much for many years, and that I didn't have to finally tell him congratulations, but should at least not guilt him for feeling overwhelmed and excited to finally be a father. He said I knew exactly how much he adores Megan and I shouldn't even think otherwise. Then said he was just sharing good news after hearing the bad news and there was nothing wrong with that. I told him and his wife to leave the house right then. He said he won't argue anymore because of how tense I felt, but will expect me to apologize at some point. Some family agreed with me, but my parents thought I shouldn't have taken my anger out on him like that, and that he'll always remember my reaction to the news he gave and should apologize after I've calmed down.
My boyfriend went on a vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimer, I look extremely tired because I had been filming for 7 hours. I'm not sad, don't worry. Storytime was sending me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months only. Here's the thing, we never bring up our exes, like ever. From my perspective, I thought we had a really healthy relationship. We're both really into fitness, would work out together every single day, and we made time to cook together every single day. He asked me to move in with him 2 months after we started dating, but I said no. I explained to him that I just wasn't ready for that, and he got really upset. That's when things started changing. He began making up excuses about not being able to hang out with me, and sometimes he wouldn't even show up to our gym dates. And I guess one of the mistakes that I made was giving him his space. A few days later, he calls me and tells me that he's in Boston for a work trip. He didn't even tell me he was going on a trip. I just said okay. Then I tracked his location on my phone and it turns out he's in the Bahamas. He forgot that I could track his location. I started investigating and you'll never guess what I found. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend went on vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimers, not my story time, was on Instagram. Also, I'm just really tired from filming. I'm not sad, I promise. After checking his location and seeing that he was actually in the Bahamas and not Boston where he told me he was going, started doing some investigating on Instagram. I scanned his Instagram for people that he tagged. I finally came across his ex's profile. No, I had never done this before just because I didn't care about his ex. Like I said in part 1, we never talked about our exes. Fortunately, her account was set to private, so I couldn't see her pictures or stories. But I did see on her bio that she was currently in the Bahamas. From his location, I could see what hotel he was staying at. So I called the hotel and asked for his room number. And they put me through. My boyfriend answered the phone. And the first words out of his mouth were, "How did you find me here?" I told him I could see his location and that he must have forgotten. That's when he came up with his lie. His boss asked him to go to the Bahamas for emergency business, and that he didn't have time to call me and tell me about it. In the background, I could hear that somebody opened the door and I heard a woman's voice. He instantly hung up on me. So I called his phone, but he wouldn't answer. In fact, he turned his phone off. It wasn't until 4 days later that he actually showed up to my apartment apologizing. He said his phone broke and that he couldn't get one while he was in the Bahamas. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend went on vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After 4 days of not hearing from my stupid boyfriend who was in the Bahamas, finally showed up to my apartment to apologize. I told him not to even bother because I knew that he was with his ex. Then he said, "You're right. I'm not even gonna lie to you." Then he came up with this whole story. He clearly had 4 days to think about it. Told me that his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend died and that she was in need of his help. She asked him to go to the Bahamas to spread her boyfriend's ashes. And of course, being the gentleman that he is, he said yeah. And that the only reason he didn't tell me was because he didn't want me to get jealous. So I asked him to confirm his story. I told him to call his ex and put her on speaker, and he refused. He said that I was being toxic, and that doing that to his poor ex would bring up all the feelings she had from her boyfriend's death, and that she was grieving and I needed to respect her space. Gaslighting much? I told him I wouldn't believe him, and then I kicked him out. He told me I was being so insensitive towards him. So I asked his ex on Instagram if the whole story was true. She hasn't opened the message, and I'm still waiting for her to reply. It's been a few days since that happened, and my boyfriend keeps coming back to my apartment with flowers and champagne. He keeps apologizing and asking me not to break up with him. I know you're all thinking I should just leave him, but I really, really love him. And maybe the story is true. He shouldn't have lied. I can't confirm his story. What should I do?
Story time about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. Well, at the end of summer, right before school started, this girl named Liv added me on Snapchat. And I had seen her all around school. She was very popular and a little bit stuck up. But I added her back, and then I got a call on Snapchat from her. I answer very awkwardly, and I'm like, hi? And then she was like, oh, I've seen you in a lot of this guy's pictures. Are you guys, like, best friends? And I'm like, yeah, sort of. And she goes, have you ever thought about dating him? It was just an extremely weird, out-of-nowhere conversation. Anyway, so fast forward 2 weeks, I walk in the first day of school with my best friend Tommy, and Tommy and I have like every single class together. For some reason, Liv thought that we were friends, and she would come and go as she pleased. Like Tommy and I would be standing at my locker, she would come over. Anyways, fast forward to chemistry. She walks in the class, winks at Tommy, like for part 2. Part 2 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, we were in chemistry, she walks in and she winks at Tommy. And I look over real quick and I realize that her nails were vermilion. That's Tommy's favorite color. And by the way, like I said before, I did not know this girl at all. We had never hung out. She never talked to me before this. Not to mention, anytime that her and I talked, she would only talk about Tommy. Fast forward a couple days, we're in chemistry, and somehow she got her assigned seat next to me. And she was like, hey, do you want to study for the chemistry test together? And I was kind of excited because I thought that I had a new best friend. So I said, yeah. Later on, she comes to my house. I never told her an address or anything like that. So I was very creeped out about how she knew my address. We studied for the test and she goes, hey, do you want to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys tomorrow? Well, tomorrow was the day that I was going out of town. So she goes, okay, maybe next week. After being out of town, I came back on a Saturday. And the next day I get a text from Tommy, like for part 3. Part 3 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, she asked me if I wanted to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys. I told her that I was going out of town. When I got back from out of town, the next day, I get a text from Tommy. He was flipping out on me. He said that I was talking shit about him to Liv. And apparently I said that I was happy that his mother died. And a bunch of other bullshit. Well, after that, Tommy cut me off, so I was lonely, and I started hanging out with Liv more, even though she said that terrible stuff to Tommy and made him cut me off. So fast forward a year, he has a new best friend, right? I get a DM from her on Instagram saying like, hey, did Tommy used to be your best friend? Pretty much everybody knew what happened between me and Tommy. But she was like, that girl that you're best friends with is dating him now. And then he completely cut me off. So technically, she used both her and I to get with Tommy. But after dating for literally like 2 months, he cheated on her because she slept with 5 other guys. Story time about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 8th grade, and my best friends and I were having a sleepover. And right before we had went to sleep, we were all talking about this one TikTok trend that was going around. It's like this trend where girls would go and put wax on their boyfriends while they were sleeping and then take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so that night I went to sleep. I should have knew this was gonna happen because I'm always the butt of the joke whenever it comes to our friend group. Like, I'm always the one getting picked on. Like, there was this one thing that my friend Ashley saw online. It was like, if you put white nail polish on your teeth, it would make your teeth whiter. So who did they decide to try it out on? Yup, me. And yes, I could have said no, but these were my best friends. I didn't think that they would intentionally hurt me. Anyway, so like I said, I go to sleep and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to something very, very, very hot on my face. I open my eyes and all of my friends are standing above me with their flashlights on. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow while I was asleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, went to sleep, didn't think anything was gonna happen, and then I wake up and all of them are standing above me with their flashlights on. And then I realized that Ashley has a stick in her hand. Once I realized that there was wax on the other end of the stick, I started screaming. So then Kelsey decides to cover my mouth. She's like, shh, it's not that bad. I promise. Like, don't worry. I get up real quick. I run to the bathroom and there's like this pink transparent wax on my eyebrow. It was about 3 a.m. and we're all sitting there trying to find ways to get this wax off of my fucking eyebrow. Well, then Amber goes, I'm tired of this, grabs it and rips it off my forehead. So I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm in 8th grade. I'm about to have my glow up and y'all gotta ruin it with taking my eyebrow off. So nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night because they thought that I was gonna do something to them. So I acted all cool. I was like, no, it's fine. I can just draw it on. When in reality, I was going to cut this bitch's hair. Like for part 3 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night. I acted like it was okay because I was plotting in my head that I was gonna cut one of their fucking ponytails off. So I go over to their house next week, and every single day that week they were telling me how good my drawn on eyebrow looked. It didn't actually look good, and none of my hairs were growing back. So around 12 o'clock, all of us are ready to go to bed. I'm laying down, pretending that I'm sleeping, and they think I'm sleeping, so they're over there talking shit about me on her bed, Ashley's bed. I wasn't sure which one's eyebrow I should rip off because the one ripped off my eyebrow, but then the other one put the wax on my eyebrow. They were like, she's sleeping. I don't think she's gonna do anything. She doesn't even have the balls to do anything. So around 4 in the morning, everybody is dead asleep. I get up and Ashley had her hair in a ponytail. So that was easy enough. I grabbed a pair of scissors out of my book bag and I cut her hair off. Storytime about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade, and we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first, she always had my back when I needed her, but then out of nowhere she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class, and everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again. How I do my makeup so bad and I could never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day, and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part 3 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, I went to the football game. She wasn't there because she had something else to do. I went up to him. I started flirting. I told him that he should break up with her and date me instead. And I also said that she was a bitch and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he was like, why would you say that about your best friend? And he was like, I would never date you. And I had a feeling this would happen. So I had photoshopped a picture of her and this guy that she sits next to in her lab class. And I showed it to him and I was like, see, she's cheating on you. So he was pissed off. He gave me his number. And the next day he came over to my house. We cuddled, watched movies, we kissed. After 3 months, Ashley found out. We hadn't talked to each other since then, but now I am 16 in 10th grade and still with her ex-boyfriend. Funny thing though, the picture that I photoshopped with her and that guy, she's literally dating him now. So you're welcome, I guess. But anyway, she still goes around talking shit on me. I mean, who can blame her? I did steal. Storytime about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. Little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me like every single day. From like 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate. And I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy, and I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study, like for part 2 about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up, so I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, oh my god, like, let's do this. I'm so happy. And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired. And 3 years later, we're still together raising our child. Storytime, my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So a little background information, I was 18 and a freshman in college. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years going on 4. And we were pretty much what you call a very toxic relationship. We would break up with each other, then get back together 5 minutes later. I would say that it's all really my boyfriend's fault, because instead of spending time with me, he would rather go out to the club and sleep with any whore that he could find. But he would always start an argument with me before he went to the club so that way he had a reason to cheat on me. And he's been doing this ever since we first started dating. I don't know why I didn't take that as a red flag, but I'm a dumb bitch who lacks common sense and is completely blind to red flags. So I started a private Snapchat, but I used it as almost like an OnlyFans. Except it was free. I added a bunch of guys on there and my boyfriend's cousins. His one cousin was my best friend and would low-key hype me up. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So like I said, I made this private Snapchat that was basically like an OnlyFans. And I had his cousin on there who was low-key my best friend. And he would low-key always hype me up on my thirst traps. So eventually I sent him a whole nude picture of myself. His cousin had a girlfriend, but neither of us were going to tell our significant others. And I told his cousin that I would sleep with him if he cheats on me again. Well, what do you know? A few nights later, he calls me starting an argument before he goes to the club. So I go to bed, I'm bawling my eyes out, and he calls me at 3 a.m. asking for me to get an Uber for him and some friends. But I hear a girl talking in the back. So obviously I gave him a hard time about it. So he hangs up on me, calls me 20 minutes later, and I hear this girl talking in Spanish in the background. Me being me, I assume the worst. I assume that he cheated on me. So he calls me the next day saying that we need to talk. I go over there, he says he doesn't want to be with me anymore. Life for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So like I said, he calls me over to his house. He says that I'm the problem in the relationship. I'm the reason why he cheats on me 24/7. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I leave and I go to his cousin's house, and his cousin kind of does the deed on me. After that, I leave because I really wasn't trying to do the nasty. So a few weeks later, my boyfriend texts me saying, I need to talk to you, da-da-da. And we're not together at this point, mind you. And he's like, hey, like, I just feel like you're really not being honest with me. Like, I want to get back together, but I feel like you're unfaithful. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? You literally cheat on me 24/7. So I give him my phone to go through it. I thought I deleted everything, but I didn't delete a conversation between my best friend and I. So I'm bawling my eyes out, turn on my game face for lying. And I'm like, I swear to God, like, I didn't cheat on you. It was a prank. But he did the nasty with that girl, so I think we're even. So obviously I got back with him and we've been together for 4 years. Story time about how somebody stole my $12,000 dog at a house party. So a little background information, I was 17 and a junior in high school, and I decided to throw a party at my house before winter break. So usually whenever I threw parties, I would always have everybody in the basement because I had a pretty big basement. There was a sliding glass door to the outside, so nobody had to go upstairs to get in or get out. And I would always lock the door to the upstairs just in case anybody decided to wander up the stairs. And because I didn't think anybody would get in upstairs, I let my dogs run around the house. So everybody who I invited showed up, and I guess that my address got leaked because a bunch of random people started showing up at my house. And it's not like I didn't have neighbors. No, I lived in a very tight cul-de-sac. So people were parking in front of my neighbors' driveways, in my neighbors' driveways. So I called my parents, and eventually I had to have my neighbors call the cops on my house party. My own party. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how somebody stole my $12,000 dog at my house party. So like I said, I had to call my parents and they got the cops called on the house so that way I could get everybody that I did not know out of the freaking house. Thankfully, my friends and I hadn't started drinking yet because literally 5 minutes after my friends showed up, random people started showing up in big groups. So after everybody clears out, I go to walk upstairs and I have my keys in my hand ready to unlock the door. The door was literally busted open. Like somebody had to have kicked the doorknob because the frame was cracked, the door was cracked. It was bad. So I'm freaking out. I wasn't even thinking about my dog at the time until my friend Kirsten asked to see my new puppy because Kirsten had just got home from college and she had only ever seen the dog over FaceTime. So we're searching all over the house and we cannot find my fucking dog. Well, when my parents got home that night, they pretty much grounded me for life. But then I want to say a month later, my friend Jake, who was there that night, called me freaking the fuck out. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my $12,000 dog got stolen at my house party. So like I said, we couldn't find Mimi. My parents pretty much grounded me for life. I get a call from my friend Jake, who was there that night of the night of the party. And he's like flipping out. He's like, I think I know who took Mimi, aka my dog. So I'm like freaking out. I go into the kitchen, I put him on speakerphone so that way my parents can hear. And he was like, well, my girlfriend Avery has this one girl who was at the party that night on Snapchat. And I was like, okay, and what the fuck about it? And he was like, well, the one night we were laying in bed together and she was going through people's Snapchat stories and then she got onto this girl's private story. And I told her, that's my friend's dog, the one that got stolen. So then we looked her up on Instagram, we went on her Visco, and she has a crap ton of pictures of your dog on her Visco. So somehow his girlfriend Avery finds this girl's address. My parents were like, oh, we want to call the police. Somehow I talked them out of doing that. Long story short, I went to her house, I got my dog back after telling her parents about it, but when I was leaving, I ran over her.